Hey guys, so today I am going to be talking to you about Renaissance music. So we've talked about artists and so like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, some of the great composers and inventors of the Renaissance time. So today I'm actually going to talk to you just about the music. And you'll see on this slide here, we're going to hit like the religious aspect of it, music notation, the printing press, madrigals, polyphonic music, chromaticism, and then just piece interpretation. All of these things that have happened and how it's just blossomed and gotten bigger from the medieval Middle Ages time. So as far as like religious wise, so you remember how I talked about the Catholic Church had given money to the peasants and now has kind of helped them bail them out, kind of like the great old stimulus package as of our time. And so what they did was that finally made them go from like the poor peasant, lower class now to a middle class is now formed. You still have your like higher, the like royalty, excuse me, that kind of class up there, but the rich. But then you still now you have that middle class where they can enjoy the things in life, where they can, some are investing it in their education, some people are investing it in just buying art or luxury stuff that they didn't quite get before. So with this now, music was a lot of just everyday life and also religion. But if you remember in my last slide, now that there's that middle class, that they don't really care about, like they do care about religion, but because they have all these great things in life now, they think that it's like heaven on earth now. They just have such a good life and they're not living, dirt poor is what they were. So that's kind of where the religion kind of falls here. So with music notation, what happened was that it became standardized. So it was more like what we see today. So when you open up a piece of music and you see a bunch of notes on a staff and moving, that's what it turned into during the Renaissance time. So that's why it's very important that it's very similar to what we see today. So it became standardized and more like what we do see today. So the awesome part, and this is like the greatest invention for composers or anybody, publishers and stuff like that, was the printing press. So the invention of the printing press meant that music could be distributed like in mass produced. So if you were a composer, what you had to do previously is that you had to sit down and write every single piece. So if you wanted 100 copies made, you had to write out 100 copies. Now what composers can do is that they can just make one copy, print it out, sell it. It's at a cheaper cost to them, less time, so they could make more money because they could make more pieces and they could be mass produced and sold throughout Europe. So this is a big gain. So because now they can make a lot more money. So that is the biggest thing that happened as far as inventions. So because music was being spread throughout Europe at a fast rate, so they had the ability to gain a greater profit. So everybody likes to make a dollar. So at least I do. So that being said, one of the most popular styles of music at this time was the madrigal. So the madrigal was a secular, it was poetic and musical form that emerged during the 14th century. For the most part of the Renaissance, it was the extremely popular music throughout Europe. Madrigals were songs for one or more voices, sometimes accompanied by a lute, which is a stringed instrument like a guitar. We did see a picture of that from the Middle Ages, so that is something to look back at and see those. The words for madrigals were poems about life, emotion, beauty, those kinds of things. So while vocal music continued to be the most important type of music during the Renaissance, music written especially for instruments became increasingly popular. So instead of, back in the Middle Ages, it was all vocal. Gregorian chant, blah, blah. Okay, all religion, no secular. You barely even heard of secular music during the Middle Ages time. Now with this, you have the madrigal, which is secular, and it is meant, poems about life, poems about beauty, because a lot of stuff in the Renaissance time was about beauty and life and living life to the fullest, and that is where, they came along. You'll see, um, like it said, but with a lute, accompanied by a lute, which is that string guitar. And that's usually where, mostly one of the only accompaniments. Now, there are more instruments that they did use, but the lute was the most popular one. Um, and so, but yeah, that's it. You'll see like Renaissance festivals where people dress in like character, and they'll walk around singing these little songs. Those songs are madrigals, and they're just little short songs. They don't have to be like really long, um, about their life, what they're living in during that time. So that was a big part of that. So moving on, we're going to talk about polyphonic music. We did talk about polyphonic music back in the Middle Ages. It started to become popular right at the end of the Middle Ages, and then continued on to become more popular during the Renaissance time, and was mainly used. That's the main type of music they use, is polyphonic music. So if you remember, to be polyphonic, it has to have multiple melodies played at the same time. So back in the Middle Ages, we talked about monophonic music. So monophonic, mono meaning one. So that's why it was only during that time that it was just one. Okay, so now we're in two or more. So that is during that time. So as the madrigal developed, um, madrigals used polyphonic, but as the madrigal developed, harmonies became bolder. So instead of sticking to a certain scale, they started to use chromaticism. So chromaticism is where the notes were actually outside of the key signature, outside of the scale. So those notes you didn't really, it was like you would hear it and you go, ooh, does that really belong there? But it really did. So they started to become more creative with their melodies by using chromaticism, which means to use notes outside of the key signature. So they would have a sharp or a flat or a natural, something, an accidental to help make it more chromaticism. And so by using chromaticism, it really brought piece interpretation into effect for each piece. So to interpret something, it's how you sing it, how you play it. By doing that, so they started to use dynamics. So dynamics means how loud or soft, so they would add that in. They would also add phrasing. So you would sing a musical sentence or play a musical phrase. It wouldn't just be, like Gregorian chant where they would sing and they'd pause. They sing and they pause. So now it's like I feel like a full sentence you're singing and talking about. They would start to incorporate tempo, which tempo means how fast or slow you're going to go. So they would tell you and write that down. Hey, I want you to go this fast. I want you to play lively. I want you to play sad. I want you to play slow. Those kinds of things. They would start to put that in. And then they would start to, the fourth thing that they tried to do was they told you like preferred instruments that they wanted for this piece. Now it was ultimately up to the director, the person who was conducting or in charge of the group, on what instruments they wanted to play for that, but they also gave you kind of like a guideline, like, hey, this is what I recommend, this is my piece, do it, pretty much. So by the music director, like I said, was the one who ultimately decided which piece. So it just kind of depended on the song, how they felt, the collection of the music that they were singing about. And so that's what the music was all about for the Renaissance period. So if you that's basically it. Tomorrow I'll be making a video about composers. We're going to start with um, two of the most famous ones, and so I will save that for tomorrow. You do have a worksheet, so make sure to answer the questions from this video. I gave you all the answers. You'll have to listen to me talk and answer your questions. So you guys have a great day. Keep up the good work. Keep working hard and getting your stuff turned in. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. Okay? Have a great day, guys.